Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today in this video we are going to talk about top SQL interview questions. SQL is one of the most important skill for a software developer and a backend engineer. And if you are preparing for any interviews for SQL, these are the certain SQL questions that come up again and again. In this video, we will go through the commonly asked SQL interview questions in a simple and easy to understand way. Let's begin. What is SQL? SQL stands for the Structured Query Language. It's the language used to communicate with the relational databases. Using SQL, we can store data, retrieve data, update data, and delete the information from our database. Simply put, whenever an application needs the data from a database, SQL is usually working behind the scenes. So we are moving to the next question. What exactly is a primary key? A primary key is a column that uniquely identifies each row in a table. For example, in a user's table, the user ID can be the primary key because every user have a unique ID. A primary should have to be duplicate values, and it won't store any duplicate values and cannot be null. Next one is the foreign key. What exactly is a foreign key? A foreign key is used to create a relationship between two tables. For example, an order table may contain a user ID that refers to the user's table. This relationship helps maintain data consistency and ensures that related information stays connected. Now move on to the next question. What exactly the difference between a where and having clause? Both where and having are used to filter the data, but they work differently. Where filters the individual rows before grouping happens. Having filters the grouped data after the aggregation, like sum and average or counting. We can call it as a aggregation. A simple rule to remember is where filters the rows, whereas having filters the groups. Okay, now move on to the next question. What is the exact difference between delete, truncate, and drop? Delete is a command that removes selected rows from a table and can use conditions, whereas a truncate removes all the rows from a table but keeps the table structure, whereas a drop command removes the entire table along with all its data and structure of the data of the table also. Now move on to the next question. What exactly is a join? A join is used to combine the data from multiple tables. In real-world applications, transformation is usually stored in separate tables. Join helps us to bring the related data together and retrieve meaningful information. The next question is, what exactly the difference between an inner join and an left join? Inner join returns only matching rows from both tables, whereas in a left join returns all the records from the left table and only the matching records from the right table. If there is no match from in a right table, then it will returns null values. In simply, inner join returns matches only, whereas in a left join returns everything from the left table and matching from the right table, matching data from the right table. If it is exist, it would give the value. Otherwise, it will give null values. Now let's talk about index. An index is a user to improve the speed of a data retrieval. Think about searching for a word in a dictionary. Instead of checking every page, you directly go to the right section. That's exactly what an index does in a database. It helps SQL find the data much faster. Rather than scanning the entire table, it would only scan the particular data by using these indexes. But the main trade-offs here are it will take more extra storage and slow. For writing operations, it is very slow. Now move on to the next question. What exactly is a group by? Group by is used to group the rows that have the same values. For example, if you want to know how many employees are in each department, group by can organize the data by department and perform calculations on each group or any department, you can say. What is a transaction? A transaction is a set of database operations that are treated as a single unit of work. Either all the operations succeed or none of them are applied. This ensures that data remains accurate and consistent, especially in applications like banking and payment systems. Now move on to the next question. What are exactly ACID properties? In ACID, A for atomicity. Atomicity means everything happens or nothing happens. Like whenever we can take any transaction, from a transaction it should have to be do all the steps either or it can roll back to the earlier initial state. Consistency. C for consistency. Consistency means the data remains valid even if it moves from one valid state to the another. It maintains the integrity. Isolation. Isolation means transaction that doesn't interfere with any each other. It will independently execute without interfering with any other transaction or any task. Durability. Once a transaction is committed, data persists even after the failure of any hardware or anything. Now move on to the next question. What exactly is the normalization? Normalization is the process of organizing the data into the related tables to reduce the redundancy and improve the integrity. The goal is to avoid storing the same information repeatedly. So we will split the large tables into the smaller and related one. For example, users table separated from addresses and orders. And the relationships in normalization are enforced by using a primary key or any foreign key and foreign keys again. What is the denormalization? Denormalization is the opposite approach. Instead of splitting all the data into the multiple tables, we intentionally combine some information to make data retrieve faster. It's often used when read operations or read performance is more important than avoiding redundancy. What exactly is a subquery? A subquery is a simple query inside another query. It allows us to use the result of one query inside another query and is commonly used to solve more complex problems. What is a view? A view is nothing but a virtual table created from a query. It doesn't store the data separately, but presents the data in a simpler and more convenient format. Views are useful for simplifying a complex query and controlling access to the data. Move on to the next question. What exactly is a stored procedure? A stored procedure is a collection of SQL statements stored inside the database. Instead of writing the same queries repeatedly, we can save them once and execute them whenever we need it. Like we can take it as a function, right? We can use it in any way, like a function. And also it can encapsulate the logic of SQL inside a database server, improves the performance. Okay. Now move on to the SQL next question. Here we can see what exactly is the SQL constraint. Constraints are nothing but rules that ensure valid data is stored in a database. Some of the common constraints are not null. It won't allow the null value. Unique, the value should have to be unique. Primarily, we can use it for user data in email, storing and phone number. We can use it. Primary key, you know that the primary key is a column that can identify the row uniquely. Foreign key, default, and check is a constraint for checking the uh, condition for any particular attribute. This can be helpful to maintain the data integrity and prevent the invalid data from being inserting into the database. How do we optimize SQL queries? As the databases grow larger, writing efficient queries becomes very important. Some of the common optimization techniques including indexes, selecting only the required columns, avoiding any unnecessary joins, and filtering the data as early as possible. A good SQL is not just about getting the correct results, it's also about getting the results very efficiently. In conclusion, I can say that these are the most important frequently asked SQL interview questions. Understand these concepts will not only help you answer interview questions, and that also make you better at designing and working with the databases in a real world application. Keep practicing, write a lot of queries, and you will become more comfortable with the SQL over time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can like, share with your friends, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.